The power of silence, or tapping into silence. So, when writing this, I hadn't spoken since the day before yesterday. I'm just going to read this out as I typed it up this morning. So, heightened senses? Absolutely. My banana this morning tasted like it was fresh from the tree in the Seychelles, as if I just grabbed it and munched it out there. It's been a fascinating 24 hours. Could I have gone further? Absolutely. Sure, I was excited to speak again, but it's been such a fascinating experience. The depth of wisdom I could pull from being silent would only accumulate if I was to continue. The physical or self-experiment is something I wanted to do for months. I'll be off to India in the next 2 or 3 days, and so I finally put it in the diary the other day, and here I am writing and talking about the experience. So here we go. What did I learn from it? Well, it's taken me 22 or almost 23 years to realize I've taken my whole voice for granted. It's never occurred to me to be grateful for the voice. Along my journey, I've met many people around the world with a loss of limbs, whether it be an arm, a leg, a foot, whatever it may be. I've often been grateful for those, but my voice, now that's something I'll be forever grateful for. Muteness, not being able to speak, is the inability to speak. I attempted briefly to find out the number of people in the UK and worldwide which have this impairment or this disorder, but I was unable to locate the numbers. So if you do know, please let me know. Am I only grateful for my voice in terms of my senses? Well, the experience has awakened me to be grateful for every sense we have. My listening became sharper and sharper as the day proceeded. Pretty acute by the end of the day. I took a stroll down the middle of the day, down the high street, and began to pick up sounds that I wouldn't usually take the time to appreciate or even hear in the first place. Whether it be laughter in the park, a group of guys and girls were just laughing away, whether it be birds flapping about in the park, flapping their wings across the park, whether it be the drills or construction equipment, whether it was the buses kind of roaming along the high street, whether it was the tubes zipping along the train tracks, or even keys unlocking the locking front doors tens of meters away. Sure, part of this may have been the placebo effect, as I expected these senses to sharpen or heighten. But by actively closing one of the senses off, i.e. my voice, it really allowed me to tune in into the others. What else did I experience? I found myself a little disorientated at some points when walking. I would have never thought the loss of voice would affect my movement, but simply by walking, took some adjusting to. The psychology of knowing I wasn't able to speak made the difference, I think. Perhaps something deeper too. Of course I could walk perfectly normally without speaking, with the ability to speak. The majority of us do that every single day. Throughout the day, the use of my body language also became, or body language in general between me or the other people became very apparent, extremely apparent. I had a task to do at the supermarket, which is hilarious, at the time, and the customer services woman, I needed her to do something for me, so I wrote it down, handed it to her, and she must have assumed I was on mute. She must have assumed I couldn't speak at all, as she spoke very slowly and gave me several thumbs up, even a double thumbs up at one point when I was leaving. I felt very positively connected to the woman who I never even met before. I felt so welcome at the customer service desk. Buying avocados at the market store was also another awesome positive experience, but slightly different this time. After an exchange of smiles, huge smiles, and nods of acknowledgement, that I wasn't speaking, I used my fingers to communicate the number of avocados, 2. He asked me whether I wanted soft or hard avocados. For a second I didn't know what to do. I was attempting to say no when he said hard avocado, so I was sort of like, that kind of thing. Then I quickly grabbed some for myself and handed it to him. Problem solved. Bear with me. Before I got to grips with basic Spanish in Bolivia, last February, body language did 99% of the work. Again, an exchange of thumbs up with the dude, and I was off. Big double thumbs up, that was the one. Along my journey down the high street, I also learned a lot about myself. So this is super interesting for me to observe. I spotted a mate across the road. What did I do? I usually just run across the road, give him a hug, give him a pat on the back, give him a handshake, whatever it may be. But this time, I didn't. I thought about it for a second, then I continued walking. I observed this behavior and realized I didn't say hey because I thought he wouldn't like to see me as a mute. I thought it would be awkward. Then I realized that I was only assuming he wouldn't like to see me and that it would be awkward if I made it awkward. Does that make sense to you, right? Despite relatively high emotional awareness, there's no way I should be predicting and assuming other people's behaviors and reactions. So there, my ego played a huge part. If I was 100% behind being silent for the day, I wouldn't have that potential embarrassment inside me. This, though, was something interesting for me to observe rather than dwell on or beat myself up. It was an interesting observation for me. I found it really, really useful to jot down my thoughts. Like all the riders I've met, it's a very cathartic release for us to just write down whatever's on our mind. But also every other person I've met who journals. A lot of people, you don't have to be a rider to journal. So this made me begin to even imagine how challenging a 9-day silent retreat, otherwise known as a Vipassana, without the option to write anything down at all. Yoga asana practice was later that day was fantastic. It was a very chilled hatha practice where the teacher spoke about her experience in India with others on their silent day, which was cool to hear. Despite both of our desires to catch up, she totally understood and was happy for me. During the days leading up to my silent day, I decided mentally that I'd be totally dormant on my phone. Like, super relaxed in terms of, not checking up on my phone too much, not reacting all the time. And that night before though, I remember my friend texting me saying, no texting. So as well as the social media, I wasn't going to let both her down, but also I wasn't going to let myself down. So I was ready for the challenge. I do admit to texting a few people though. Exceptions. My coach rang me, Mo Hashimi, who's got the website Dear Dialogue, which is absolutely fantastic in terms of self-awareness, self-improvement, all this kind of stuff. I couldn't help but message him and text him back just saying I was on a silent day, I can't speak at the moment. My sister also, as she was keen to come to yoga practice, who's kindly filming away at the moment, and my best mate as well, in hope that I see him the next day, i.e. today, which hopefully is on later on. Otherwise, I read a bunch of messages that came through on other platforms and mentally acknowledged them and let them go. I'll reply tomorrow with my words mentally. Oh, and I do remember breaking the rules. There's a nice dog just come up here, and by commenting on a friend's photo to say she looked fantastic, and she really did look fantastic. We just get the dog on the screen. It's fantastic. Nice, cool. So here you go, the conclusion. So what else? What did I learn? Gratitude. Practicing gratitude daily has really brought me a lot of happiness in my life, and now I can be even grateful for my own voice and other senses. Observation. Observing thoughts, observing temptations, observing emotions and desires while being silent was ever most present. and I was able to just take them in and let them go, or write them down and let them go. It's very challenging though. I could also pick up amongst others, and also, like, for example, I'm getting a little bit tired in this kind of squat position, but I'm just gonna let that thought go and crack on. So I could also pick up amongst others that they were learning things about themselves too. They would have to be patient. They couldn't get answers from me that day unless I wrote them down. And again, I was excluded from any potential arguments or inquisitive conversations, as I like to throw people into. And yeah, I do admit to annoying my family. It just happens. I can't help myself. As I'm off to India very soon, I just want to tell people what's on my mind. But often that's not what they perhaps want to hear at this moment. Sure, friends and family were initially disappointed that they weren't able to engage in conversation, but were also interested, and I suppose I could have annoyed people with my body language, but I didn't. Being silent was quite the opposite. Heightened senses, of course, and body language, yeah, all of that kind of stuff. It was incredible to kind of witness, like having very, very sharp and listening, for example. Positivity, let's jump into that. I also realized that my day was overwhelmed with positivity, and I mean that for sure. Smiles all around, thumbs up all around, peace signs all around. So it was not only a reinforcement of body language, but also a realization that awakening, that when I do use my voice, is there a way I can replicate that positivity? Question mark. Can I refrain from all negative speech and to then not just talk the truth or kindness, but also to remain silent when I refine myself having had these raised negative emotions? So why am I not continuing? Why am I not continuing this silence? Well, I'm off to India in a couple of days, as I mentioned, and there are many awesome individuals I'm fortunate to spend my last days with. But when I do get out to India, I'll be looking forward to doing a Vipassana, although slightly scared too. Exciting times. I would happily continue this silence in London otherwise. I find all this mindset stuff fascinating. I'm currently recovering from depression, feeling 10 times better than I was a few weeks ago when I felt suicidal at times. I can say that. This has been very, very, very healing. And I really mean that. And to finish off with, I've now got a whole new avenue of interest I'll be reading up on later, or research, muteness, the global disorder. And what I've said over the last few minutes has been a little too long. Not too long, but it's been a little long. Thanks for listening. One thing, if anything I've said today that has sort of slightly encouraged you to go towards having a day of silence or even an hour of silence in one day, then that's kind of job done. That's awesome. That if this message can touch one person, fantastic. And whether it be a major city, it's perhaps more difficult in a major city, whether it's a town or even in the Himalayas. But I think a major city might be more challenging. But anywhere's cool. Then that's made this worthwhile. Anyway, good luck, all the best, Dom, and a big thumbs up, peace signs, and silence.